So I was really struggling with how I was going to open the show, our family episode. I have a really complicated relationship with my family. I love them very much. They love me very much. But we have a very complicated history. My parents were together until I was about 16, but their relationship was not a perfect one. I don't think anyone is, but especially as a child, I saw that it was not the perfect relationship. And after that, that relationship started affecting my relationship with my parents. And once they split up, our dynamics changed very greatly. And so in the 8 or 9 years that my parents have been split up, our dynamics have changed a lot. And I think that the hardest part of growing up is realizing that your parents are flawed people who do their best and sometimes don't. And regardless of what happens, you know, you still have this duty to them, this connection to them, this bond, but they're not perfect and they don't make the right decisions all the time and they hurt you sometimes. But at the end of the day, you're expected to have this bond between each other and to love each other regardless. And I'm just here to say that can be really, really fucking hard for me. This is Coffee and Catastrophe with Brent and Gabi.
Fuck.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on the verge of I feel like I'm going to cry during this episode. We'll have to see at the end if I do.
Man, so my great-grandfather was an actual Nazi.
I love you. You always have to make me laugh after I get so negative.
Well, in my family bloodline, there's a Jew murderer.
My mom's side of the family was based in Georgia and they owned slaves. So, you know, we have people killers and people enslavers on both sides of the equation here. Our checkered family history.
So the thing that's in your blood just has to buy people.
Oh my God. Ew.
So think of it this way. Adopt.
Oh my God. Did you just really make that link?
Well, okay. So your great whatever granddad.
Oh man,
grandma.
it wasn't great. It was like
your mom.
No, it was not my mom. It was like, okay, so technically it would be my great, I think, grandparents. Like they were farmers in Georgia, like not like wealthy from what I understand, but they had slaves to help them on their property. And like the really gross thing is then when like family members will try to be like, but they were like family. And it's like, I just think of like in Raisin in the Sun, the main character, Lena or Mama, she is like telling her daughter, I believe it is, like how like when you work for somebody as like a worker, like a nanny or or the help, quote unquote, as she did, she's like, you're never a part of the family. You are a worker. And like, oh, I just fucking hate when people are like, but they were treated like family. And I'm like, oh, you like enslave your family and you think that they're subhuman, don't let them live with you or eat with you. They wait on you. Like, what the fuck? Like, you might think that they're family. That person does not think they're part of your family.
Well, I mean, you're giving them a place to live. You got a questionable roof over their head and
questionable
3 meals a day.
Questionable 3 meals a day.
I mean, you're giving them purpose with, work.
You can, beat them and treat them as if they're not human if you're not feeling it.
Well, some of them also volunteered. So it's not like
who the fuck told you that?
Your great grandparents, grandpappy. Like, I'm
sure my great grandpappy.
They took his friends away.
They literally like, there is a like, I don't know why we have this. It's like a book about like the history of the county that like my mom's dad's my maternal grandfather's family, like the history of the county they lived in. And they have like census data. And there's literally a line in the census data for like slaves. And like they have like all these like weird anecdotes about like people who lived in the community between these times. And one of them is about like a I think he was still enslaved, but he was blind, and he was like this like community figure and like a touchstone, like that's a blind slave. I almost called him an African American, but they probably didn't consider him an American. So just a slave, I guess. And like, I forget where or when we were like cracking this book open and like realizing it was there, but people were like fawning over it and thought it was like so like homey and nice. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, you guys are like looking back on like horrible history, and her family did horrible fucking things. I don't care if it was the norm. Like, and people are like, oh my God, just think about that time, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, you're all fucking idiots. That's okay. What I just said, that you're all fucking idiots. I do have that feeling about my family sometimes.
I mean, you should have a little more empathy because their slaves were taken away.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Like, the government just changed overnight.
I like how you didn't say government, you said government.
And their rights were taken away. Their God-given rights.
Did you know that so when states were conceding from the Union, they came up with like a state constitution. And in nearly all the state constitutions, it said that their reasoning was partially founded on what they believed to be the superiority of the white race. And that's how, like, that's when like people are like, the Civil War is about economics. Like, no, it was also like they put in writing that they believed that the white race was superior. Like, come on, guys. Like, the Confederate flag is not just a symbol of pride. It's a symbol of white supremacy. Like, come on.
Well, I mean,
As someone has family from the South. I mean, I was raised in like Chicagoland area. So like really I'm from the North, and the North doesn't get off scot-free either, because Lincoln didn't even care if like he made some comment like he didn't really care about slavery. He just wanted like the Union and the Confederacy to be one country. He didn't really care about slavery. And he also had said at a conference like 2 years before I think he became president, he was on record as saying that he believed in the supremacy of the white race. So like,
So that's where I feel thankful having a Nazi as my great-grandfather, because he killed other white people. So he was a very progressive guy.
If we're gonna like rank who has it worse, the person who's got the Nazi in their background, the person whose family owned slaves at some point.
Well, I mean, because, dude, my great-grandpappy, like, his name was Otto. I actually looked him up. Otto never killed any black people. Ever. Only white people. This guy was ahead of his time. He would fit in right now.
Oh my God. Stop.
Stop.
Does your family get out the Nazi propaganda and think about how swell it was?
No.
How quaint.
No. Well, it's because like my uncle, or not my uncle, I can talk about my uncle later, but my great-grandfather was a workaholic, never missed a day to showing up to kill Jews.
Oh my God.
But so here's another thing that I thought was absolutely fascinating. Anxiety runs in my family.
Really?
Yeah, like on my dad's side. So my great-grandfather on my dad's side was a Nazi, so his name was Otto Bartsch. And I actually looked this up. So I just, for the first time in my life, had the conception of a Nazi with anxiety.
Oh my God. So
like, you gotta hand it to the guy, because like he probably like, you know, like at the end of the day, he's like, oh my God, did I push him in the oven too hard? Stupid.
Oh my God. Unrelated note, do you know the podcast Kill Tony?
No.
It is a comedy podcast that they film across the country. And I believe the premise is that they offer like a 1 minute like stand-up time for like people in the audience. And then they like kind of interview the person or talk to them like about their bit and if it was funny or like whatever. And so I feel like you could go on that and do that bit. Like we have my great grandfather was a Nazi, but we also have in our family the history of anxiety. So I often think about like that would be really funny.
Like he can't sleep the night before because he's like, oh shit, I have to get up at 7 a.m. And he's looking at the clock. It's like 3 and he's like counting in his head like, oh shit, I have 4 hours of sleep. I'm going to have a bad day. Fuck, I don't want to go into work. Man, maybe I shouldn't have said that to the Jew. Oh man, I'm a fucking asshole.
That is Okay, can I ask, how did you learn that you have Nazis in your family or from your past?
There's we have an actual family tree book.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't online. It was like this. It's like this old book with like a plastic dust cover on there, and the pages are yellowed. And like there was like the last time it was updated when I was born. So this book hasn't been touched in 31 years.
Yeah.
And up in the tree, you have my dad's name, and you have my mom on like both sides of the tree, and then you just kind of have like as far back as it goes. And we have like even more than just my great grandfather in there, and then good old Papa Otto, the Nazi. And then my grandma would tell stories about him too. So he was a very like faithful guy too. So so for instance, when my grandma on my dad's side first got married, she married someone that abused her. Mm-hmm. So how my grandma came to this country was that guy beat up my grandma so bad that her Nazi father wanted to like kill him and was searching the country to kill him.
That's so cool.
So then he just got the fuck out of Dodge and was running away from a very pissed off, anxious Nazi. So, and then that's how...
It's not cool that he was a Nazi, but I think it's cool that, like, you beat up my daughter, I'm going to hunt you down and kill you.
Yeah, but you never hear about Nazis being protective fathers either.
Nope, you never do. You never do. The whole thing about them believing that they're superior to everybody really drowns everything out. We actually, so in my class that I teach, our final is that kids have to do a speech about when should citizens rebel. And so what I did to prepare them for that was we did a case study about, this is true, there is, I think the name has been changed within the past couple of years, but there was a high school named after Nathaniel Bedford Forrest, who is the creator of the KKK and a Confederate general. And so there was like this big argument about like, should they change the name or not? And so to do this like case study, like the kids take on roles that like, and then we like at a certain point like shed the roles and talk about how we feel about the case as like people, and it's like how they personally feel. And one of the perspectives that is assigned is supposed to talk about how like he was a great military general, and he was such a good like this and that, this whole the fact that he started the KKK like drowns out the good things he did, blah blah blah. We should focus on the good that he did. And it was funny because like you literally saw kids grappling with that, with like if someone did good things. And of course somebody brought up Hitler and was like, you could make the argument Hitler was a good leader because he was persuasive and a great orator and he got them out of the Depression and this and that, but then he killed millions of people. And so it's kind of like, that push and pull you could see happening in their brains, which is awesome. And I think that that's a game that a lot of people play when like it comes to like the German people now. When I went to Germany when I was like 14, my grandmother and I did like a tour, my maternal grandmother, because as I've talked about my paternal grandmother and I see that woman once a year maybe, and she, and so that noise is supposed to explain our relationship. But my maternal grandmother and I, when we went over, the tour guide and the bus driver were German. And they were only at one point did they address like the big elephant in the room, which is them in World War II. And he just simply said like, we are not proud of it. We don't try to talk about it. Like we're all like very sad and have so much like shame about what happened. And I was like, and then I see that and I'm like, if the Germans are sad for what they did, can't white people over here in America whose families own slaves like myself have some like reverence, being like, wow, that is not okay. That's morally wrong. I don't care if it was at the time. It was wrong. It was unethical. It was immoral. I'm going to separate myself, even though it's my family, and say, that's some bullshit. I'm not proud of that. I am not like, no, blah, blah, blah. So, but I think there's a lot of people who, when it comes to family, they can't do that. It's kind of like, is it like if I called your mom an asshole, like you'd be like, no, yeah, I can call her an asshole. Not that you've ever called your mom an asshole before.
Yeah. So that kind of brings up the question of like, where does your loyalty lie? I would say if my mom was being an asshole to you, it's fair game. But if I'm telling you a story about like a happy time, like where I just say like, yeah, my mom used to read me books when I was a kid, and we would actually do shadow puppets on the wall. Like she would actually she would read me the story and then shine the flashlight on the wall, and we would put our hands in front of the shadow and like act out the story. And she like taught me sign language. And you said, "Wow, what an asshole!" I would be like, "Fuck you." That's
a real thing?
Yeah,
that's really cute. Your mom knows sign language?
Like it was like in the children's books.
Oh, really?
So like they taught you like A, B, C, D. Like I forgot it all.
That's so cool.
But like we would make the shadow puppets, and I had this flashlight where you would it was red. Like you could actually like change the lenses with a dial, so it was like white and then like red and then blue or like no green and then.
I think I had one of those.
Yeah, it's a big ass yellow Play School.
Yeah, I totally had that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think. When it comes to criticism of other parents, you could, it's justified depending on the context. So like, it's not to the point where I'm so loyal. Mm-hmm. If you were saying it just like, oh yeah, well your mom's a fucking bitch, like just to like hurt me in an argument. Yeah. Like, yeah, that means you're kind of
no, you'd be a shitty person. But like, no, I'm kind of like, I will, complain about like family members, and then somebody like I've had on occasion somebody be like, wow, they sound like an asshole, and then a sliver of me is like, that's my asshole, but like I really don't feel like that. Like I'm pretty good about calling it like I see it. But I do I was thinking a lot this week how I have a lot of guilt about like negative feelings towards my family, because we do love each other so much. And they've done a lot for me and really helped me, but they've also like, there's also like hurt and pain. Like whenever like, I think there's no like relationship that is always positive, and there's never a relationship where you haven't hurt each other, as minor as it may be at one point or another, like hurt feelings. Like there's a lot of pain when I think about like my mom and my dad, and I feel really guilty for. Like right now, I told you before we were recording, like I'm kind of like, I love my family, but I think I have to set some boundaries because of my own like healing and some stuff that I'm going through. And I feel guilty that I have not positive feelings about my family. But at the same time, like I want to just forgive for what I've experienced at their hands or how they've made me feel. But at the same time, like, I'm not gonna lie, there's a big part of me that doesn't want to forgive them because of like, wow, this got really dark really fast. But like, yeah, that's like where I stand with my family. It's really hard for me to talk about. And like when Cody and I were dating, like he has really positive feelings about his family and childhood and like all this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't feel that way. And I feel really bad because my parents gave me life and, we had a good existence mostly growing up. But yeah, I've got a lot of guilt about my family and like how I feel about them.
Is it specifically because of like the past, or is there still stuff that hasn't been reconciled? Like, or like, have you had conversations with them about your feelings?
My mom, I have. My dad, I have not. I don't know how I would be able to talk to my dad about them. I feel like you have to know your audience, and I love my dad very much, but I also don't know if anything would be gained by me saying, like, by bringing it up. Like, when I was in college, I did get really upset and disappointed because my dad would, like, never call in to check in on me. I think it must have been, like, the first year or something. And at one point, I guess I was really sad, and I, like, told him, like, you never call. And I think the reaction I got from him was, well, the phone works both ways. But the way I responded to it was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm the person who's supposed to be having fun in college. I'm the kid. You're the parent. You need to call me and check in on me. And he did after that. And like, now it's like, he'll like reach out. Like if we haven't seen each other, he'll like ask me to come over or like come over for dinner or something like that, or see me. So like that's happened. And then like the stuff with my mom, I recently, I think it was over the summer, I told her, because we tried, like, I think once before I have told her, like, I'm really upset about about some things. And I think over the summer, I confronted her again and just said, like, I think about this and I'm not happy about it and blah, blah, blah. And I think she's really remorseful about what happened. And she tries not to think about it because she's really ashamed of, like, what happened. and like how things were working between us. And because of that, like I feel bad because my mom is remorseful, but I have a lot of anger and resentment about how I was treated. And that feeds into, you know, there's a lot of kind of trauma there that makes me not want to be around my family. But then I feel guilty because they're my family, right? And you're supposed to love your family and hang out with them and like whatever. So like that's how I feel with like my mom, and that like I should love her and be happy when I get to talk to her and hang out with her. But instead I don't sometimes, like, and then I'm crying. I'm gonna be fine. Don't have to hug me. I told you I was gonna cry in this fucking episode. But yeah, it's just really hard, and I have a lot of guilt about it because I'm supposed to love my family, but you know, there's just some shit that you can't I'm not ready to forgive. But I know like it would be so much easier on me if I just forgave them, because like forgiveness is like you're unshackling yourself from this pain because you forgive them and you can like move on. But like some of the stuff I just can't, like I like in my brain, I'm like, how can you forgive somebody for that? Like how? And so maybe I need to go talk to somebody about like, how do I forgive this person? But yeah, so that's really tricky and sucky. And like I told on our like holiday episode, like I don't really have a great relationship with my dad's side of the family. Like I love my aunts and my uncles, but like it was really weird growing up because my grandparents on his side, I didn't have a positive relationship with them. I did get to meet my dad's biological father, and that was amazing, but he passed away like 3 years after we met him, 2 or 3 years. So that was kind of rough. But yeah, on my mom's side, like I love my grandma and I love my uncles, her brothers, and my cousins. But yeah, no, like the immediate family, it's hard. And I love my brother. I just like, I think what makes me sad is like when I look at my brother, I think that we're very alike, and like he and I experience the same stuff. And I know he's probably going through the same type of emotional feelings of guilt, feelings of needing to be loyal, wanting to have a positive relationship, but it's really hard to, given what we experienced. So yeah, family's a really tough subject for me. Like whenever, yeah, even like kids that I teach, like will like talk about stuff, or like when I'm teaching, like things will come up. Like for example, my sophomores read the book, The Glass Castle. And I had to read that for the first time last year when I was teaching it. And I couldn't stand the book because not only is it 288 pages of a girl getting abused, like I have had experiences that I like relived through reading that book and was like, fuck this shit. Like I do not want to teach this fucking book. Like I know, like God, if I was 16 going through what I went through and reading that, I would be like, I already go home to this. Why the fuck do I have to read about it in school? So yeah, I'm sorry I got really dark, but that's my truth.
So you got a lot darker talking about your family than I was talking about Nazis and slaves. And
yeah, only because like it's only the affect of like I didn't know the people that owned slaves. I'm disconnected them from time. I've never met them, and I don't sanctify their behavior, but I have met my mom and my dad and experienced their treatment of me and their decision making and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And well, this wouldn't be the podcast it is without some honesty.
Yeah, no, and that's my, I won't go into, I don't think it's fair to give details of what happened because, if people know me and then they know my family, I don't think that that's right for me to give the dirty details of everything. But suffice to say that it was not a happy experience for a period of time. And I really struggle to look even upon, like, that's why I don't know what episode it was, but I think it was maturity. And I talked about like having to mature because of things that were going on in my household when I was in high school. Like yeah, like I can't go into details about it. That's not fair. The person isn't here to give their consent for me to talk about that. But yeah, it's really heavy. And again, I really want to forgive. Like I really want to forgive and unshackle myself from that burden, but like I don't know how. I don't know either. It's going to take a long time to get to that place. Yeah.
And, over the years, I'm just hearing more people. I think it really depends on the individual, because there's not a general good advice about forgiveness. And I hear a lot of great shit all the time. Like I was talking to a coworker yesterday about, forgiveness, and he mentioned a quote from a book that he recently read, and he said, you truly forgive somebody when you don't wish any more harm on them.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like, I don't think I necessarily wish harm on my family. But you know what? There are times where I sit there and I'm like, I want you. I remember having this feeling like I want you to suffer and think about like what you fucking did to me and fucking sit with that for the rest of your life. Like that, I've had those feelings before. I don't know if it's right now that's how I feel. I do think sometimes that like no one wants to sit with the guilt and shame of bad decisions they've made. No one wants to do that. That's really painful and hard. But at the same time, like, yeah, it's just really tricky. So we got real dark, but like, that's my truth. That's what's honest. I feel really, have a lot of guilt, have a lot of bad feelings, but it's not all that way. I do love my mom and my dad, my brother, and my aunts and my uncles and my grandparents. Like, I love them. I would, if they needed something, I would try to help them. Like, I see them on holidays. We try to hang out when we can, but I'm kind of learning where I need to set the boundaries so I can fully heal from, like, the stuff. I feel guilty even putting the boundaries up because, like, so this is like some internalized bullshit. Like, I sometimes will tell myself that like the things that happen to me aren't like, I was never raped. I was never molested. I was never like, physically abused or, nothing like that ever happened to me. So why do I get to feel upset or hurt because that never happened? But I think that's just like, that's like internalized shame probably, that like in order for my pain to be validated, it has to be something of a physical, brutal or sexual assault nature. And while that didn't happen, like I have a lot of pain and upsetness and like emotional stuff. And I need to just like acknowledge like, no, you can feel your feelings. Like, they're valid. They're correct. You don't have to be so quick to tell yourself you're wrong to feel that way. 'Cause like, yeah, that's not good. So that was really heavy. That was really big. I'm sorry if you need to take a break and like take a sip of water, go to the bathroom, grab a snack, take a deep breath.
This is definitely not the darkest shit you've ever told me. Like, I mean, like it's very deep and very honest, but I think there's really nothing you can throw at me to where I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. What is the darkest shit I've ever told you?
I obviously wouldn't say it on here, but
really?
I mean, like, you said some pretty dark shit.
I remember in one episode you were jokingly, I said, like, I've had moments where I just want to, like, sink into the earth and, like, end it all. But, like, and then you were like, God, that's fucking dark. But I think you were joking.
No, I was definitely joking.
Okay.
Because you were, because I just went on my, like, 20-minute monologue about depression and suicide, and then you spoke for like 2 minutes about like, yeah, I just wanted to feel, and I was just like, yeah, that's fucking dark. Yeah. like as a joke, just to kind of alleviate the tension in the room. So I mean, yeah. So your stories and your feelings are never a burden. So I just want you to know that right now, and So back to Jews.
Back to the Nazis and slave owners that were in our family, not are. Are or were. I, even as the English teacher, don't know.
Yeah. You want to know what's so great about having an actual Nazi as a relative?
What?
He didn't vote for Trump.
Oh my God.
So that should make everybody happy that my great-great-grandfather was not a Republican, nor voted for Trump.
Did he Did he ever make it to the United States?
No, he died in Germany.
Okay.
How, I don't know, but well, he
A
probably
revenge scenario a la, what's that movie? Inglourious Bastards.
No, okay, knowing my family, it was probably December.
Oh my God, because December is when all the bad shit happens.
And like he was probably just being anxious about his life at an old age. He's like, oh my God, I probably shouldn't have said that. Oh man, I'm so stupid. And then he went, and then just collapsed on the floor in his house in Germany, and then just fucking croaked, like just hit the floor, dead. And then they took him out, and then they burned him like Darth Vader. Like so.
Do you know what year he died?
I have no idea. Like once my grandmother left Germany to come to America, the rest of like the family history is kind of a big blur.
Now, does that mean that this is your dad's side or your mom's side?
Dad.
Does that mean your dad was born in Germany?
I think he was born on the boat to America.
Oh my God, are you fucking kidding me?
No, like I don't know the 100% details. So either he was born in Germany and then my grandma came over here immediately. He was born on the boat, or as soon as she landed, she like shortly after she gave birth to my father. Actually, yeah, because his he does not have a middle name.
Okay.
So, actually, yeah, this is true. I think it was on the boat. And when it came time to actually fill out the paperwork for who's this person?
A birth certificate and everything.
Yeah, he didn't have a middle name because I don't know if it's in Germany, you don't have a middle name, but like on the birth certificate and all that stuff and the paperwork he had to sign, the guy just put the initial A.
What?
So my dad's legal middle name is A.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, so, but my
blank,
middle name.
A blank. Interesting. Oh, but your middle name.
My middle name is my dad's first name.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't think I actually know. Not that we'll say it now. But like, you know how like friendship wise, you generally know details like this. I don't know what your parents' names are.
Yeah,
they're just Mr. and Ms. Lucas.
Yeah.
In my brain.
Yeah. I just say mom and dad, Yeah. So because it would be weird to just say like, oh yeah, like my dad, like just call him his name.
People call my dad by his first name to me all the time.
Right. Because it's, like I could say like, yeah, your dad's name is this. And like, that's totally
yeah.
cool.
Like you because you've met my dad. We've all hung out. Like, we saw Jim Jeffries a couple years ago. And like you had a ticket and then you ended up. Did you come to dinner with us?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you came to dinner with us too. And we cabbed over to the show and you sat away from us. But yeah, so like we've shared a meal together. You, me, my father, my brother. And so like you will call my dad by his first name. But like I also have friends who've like met my dad and will call him by his first name because that's how he introduces himself. Like he doesn't call me he's like, call me Mr. C. Like that doesn't happen. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, what? Like, oh yeah.
No, I mean, a lot of my family history is kind of a mystery. All I know is on my mom's side, there's just a lot of Polacks who played accordions and were like brilliant math engineers.
Oh, that's cool.
And then like on my dad's side, there's just Nazis with anxiety. So like those
anxious
two.
Nazis.
Yeah. So now I'm anxious. I'm not a Nazi. And I'm really good with practical math. Like I could actually do percentages and taxes in my head, but when it comes to algebraic equations, I have no idea how that works. It's too. I just don't have that proclivity in my mind. I mean, like no matter how hard I try, I just can't get it. But with practical math and decimals and shit, like I know like what's the word? Like exponentially? Like I could do that shit. Mm-hmm. So
I loved that you used proclivity. I've not heard that word in a long time. Good job.
Yeah, I mean, I got a bunch of words.
Yeah.
I just choose to use the ones that you can't say more often.
It's very true. You're very learned. So I think my mom's family has people here on both sides of the Revolutionary War. So we've been here like in America for a pretty long time, except for my grandfather's side. There is the coolest like family artifact that we have is like a Bible, and on the inside it's inscribed like to whatever my family member's name is, like good luck in the new world. And it was like the Bible that they gave him to come over to America with in like the 1900s or something like that, or like maybe 1880s. But we have that, and I think that's a really cool artifact. But my roots are in like England, Scotland, Germany. My dad is like all German. My last name is not German because it's an adoptive last name. I don't know if I've articulated this, but my biological grandfather got divorced from my biological grandmother on my dad's side when my dad was, I think, 12 or 13. And then it was common practice, like in the 70s, that like if the wife remarried, that the children would be adopted by the stepfather and take his last name. So that's what they did. And so that man was Italian. So I have an Italian last name, but I'm not Italian. I think my dad had to do like a family history project when he was in school. And he told me we have like one Italian, like very distant, like relative or something like that. So we're mostly German. And then I also have some French Canadian in me on my mom's side. And yeah, so I'm just like, I'm a WASP. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon, was raised Protestant. Like, I don't have any Eastern European or anything in me. I'd like to eventually do in those like ancestry kits to like know more. But did you know that if you do that, the government owns your DNA?
No, I did not know that.
Now you know that. Yeah. Or 23andMe, like any of those, like, or is 23andMe the one? Maybe it's not the ancestry kit, but like one of them, the government then owns your DNA profile.
All I want to have happen is to find out that somewhere in the way back of my family tree, I am related to The Rock. That would be so fucking cool.
I thought you were going to say Patrice O'Neal.
No, I mean, that'd be cool. I love Patrice, and, you know, he has a lot. Oh, God, I mean, I can go on and on about him, but he's a very polarizing character, so he would not fit in with the times now. But I learned so much from him, you know, especially, like, about, like, slavery and, like, the difference between Jews and blacks in terms of their plights. But, I mean, that's a whole other thing I can get into. But the stuff that he says about it, it just completely blew me away when he was breaking it all down. But one of the things about family is, at the end of the day, at the bottom of our hearts, we all want to have that family union. It's not, I've never heard a person who actually has a loving, caring, and supportive, like, member of their family, and they're like, you know something, I can do without that. Fuck that. Like everybody wants to have a loving mother, a loving father, like whatever, you know, siblings and stuff. There's never an easy solution because we're very keen on pointing out the flaws and the wrongdoings of other people. Yeah. And like claim that like we are morally superior because we have not done that. However, we have all of this baggage and like misery passed down from generation to generation that we are all trying to deal with. So like I said in an earlier episode, like, I think one of the best things, like, the way to really improve the world is not by reaching, like, to progressively make the world a better place, is not striving for the best, but it's improving the worst.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, my biological destiny is to completely let go of the misery that has been passed on from generation to generation from my family on both sides. And that's a very difficult task to do.
Yeah, it is. I honestly, like, I think of that too. Like, I would like to be, like, I don't want to say my parents or my family are, like, miserable, because that's not true. Like, there's a lot of them who, like, find happiness in, like, things or whatever. But, like, I would like to be a person to, like, forgive and, like, be happy and like not have a tumultuous problem with substances or other people or have a failed quote unquote marriage, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So
everyone wants that family union though.
Exactly. We all know it too. And what kind of pisses me off pisses me off the most is when people say like, yeah, we're not like the perfect Leave It to Beaver family. My question's always been, why the fuck are we looking at a TV show to be a perfect moniker for? And when I really think about it, everybody else's family is the Leave It to Beaver family, only because when I'm interacting with them, everything is pleasant and great. I never see the bad shit.
You never saw the bad shit in somebody else's family?
Very rarely. Maybe once or twice in like my whole life, I've seen like first-hand account. You know, like, I'm present. Like, I've heard a lot of people saying, like, yeah, this stuff happened. And, like, that's totally true. But, like, the worst parts of your past if I was there.
Like, if their dad was, like, smoking crack in the corner beating their mom, like, you weren't there to see that.
No,
but
I'd probably see, like, a charming guy.
Yeah.
And then, like, as soon as I leave, then the stuff happens. So
No, yeah.
that's the facade. The facade is not, like, the facade of the Leave It to Beaver family isn't, like, what our own family should be. It's what other families are. So who knows? Maybe when, like, the camera is turned off of Leave It to Beaver, like, it's just the shittiest place to live. But because we're watching, it's a TV show, it knows we're watching, they pretend to be the best family, like kind of like with other families. Like, I always see the best in everybody else when I'm there, but when I'm not there, that's when the worst comes out.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that is a big part of our culture, is that, like, everyone wants to be like, oh, we're this happy family, we have this great union, blah, blah, blah. But, like, if that's actually the case is a totally other story. Like, I think, and, like, is it just because, like, as humans we're flawed and we do imperfect things, and I feel like maybe it's just part of the human condition that you hurt the people that you care for by accident. Like, it's just what happens.
Yeah, so some of it's very deliberate, though. We're not built for perfection. We're built for progress.
Yeah.
And in order to make progress, you have to kind of fuck up sometimes.
No, you're really right. Yeah.
Not to intentionally, like, hey, Gabby, I have to beat the shit out of you to be a better friend. Like, no. But, like...
well, then why did you do that earlier today? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, my God.
No.
No, oh, God. But, or at least I didn't vote for Trump. Anyway. So, I don't want to talk about politics as much, but which is another thing that families tend to bring up constantly.
That's one of the big points of contention in my family, is, like, my brother and I align with one parent more closely than we do with the other in the political spectrum, and it is an all-out war every fucking time something comes up. It's like screaming matches, like oh, it's just the fucking worst. And, like, I need to not be so stubborn, and just, like, if someone says some shit that I don't like, and I know it's not a person who's going to ever be able to concede to what I'm saying, I need to just not say anything and save my fucking energy, because it's not worth it to, like, tell somebody that they're fucking wrong and a fucking idiot and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
So pretty much everything I've said on this podcast, like, for the most part,
has been a preservation of my own energy. No, we always you and I can tactfully talk about pretty much anything. Like you can say something I don't agree with, but I know how to, like, talk to you about, like, my feelings about it. And, like, my intention with you is never to, like, change your mind. It's more so to be like, but what about, like, this? Like, this is my thought for consideration, which I guess in a weird way could come off as, like, trying to convince you. With my family, it's, like, not me trying to convince them. It ends up me being just like, yeah, I don't say that, like, you're a fucking moron, blah, blah, blah. I think my tone says it, though, and that's, like, what they don't like.
Yeah, and I think me and you can talk about these things because, at least to my knowledge, and I'm willing to bet it's the case, you're not harboring anything against me that's been left outside. So I think when families talk about politics, they're not talking about politics. Politics is kind of the fodder. That's the ammo that's being used.
Yes.
But there's a lot of shit between family members that is left completely unsaid.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I haven't really even thought about it that way, but you're totally right. That it's just like this... yeah.
Because if you're in a room of people who secretly hate each other...
Do you think that all families secretly hate each other?
No. I think a lot of the time... So, like, okay, I'll use the example of my family. There's a lot of love and loyalty to a fault there amongst all members of the family. Just me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. However, we don't get along quite a bit because there's still a lot of stuff that's been left unsaid. So just observing them throughout my whole life, the fights they have, even the ones that I've been involved with, were never about the issue at hand. That's how you're able to build fences Like when it comes to talking about certain issues, or not build, mend fences, not build.
Build bridges.
Yeah, build bridges. So when you're discussing somebody who you really don't have any sort of negative feelings towards, and there's no resentment that has been built, and there's nothing, that's how you're really able to like work things out. But a lot of times what happens is those big issues are pushed to the side, and the little ones are kind of the placeholder and substitute, or like the voodoo doll to work out the bigger stuff. So if you have the small victory, that could lead to the bigger victory. So it's kind of like if your parents, or if like, let's just say the parent who you disagree with the most politically, those conversations would be easier to have if the bigger stuff that you would like to communicate with them was really settled and completely like redeemed, and like we're able to move on and all that stuff.
Yeah. And there was, I watched this YouTuber, Nikki Limo. She's really funny. She does Tasty Tuesday videos where she like tries out a recipe, and she used to do Thirsty Thursdays with like cool drink recipes. But she and her husband have this new kind of like show series on her YouTube called The Sticky Show, because her name is Nikki and his name is Steve. And they had an episode where they talked about like their relationship, and that when they had one of their first fights, they did this exercise where they literally like, and because they're like actors or whatever, like they like mimed this, but like it kind of sounds hokey, but like if you can get into it, maybe like someone out there listening can like try this with like their family or like a person they're in a relationship with. But like they literally mimed like pulling arrows out of their bodies, and they said like what the arrow was that the other person shot into them that's been sitting with them, and then they symbolically like cracked the arrow over their knees, and that symbolically was like, I'm gonna tell you this and that it hurt me and I'm never gonna bring it up again, but like you need to then your half of the bargain is you have to know what this arrow is, and you can't shoot it at me anymore. Like if I was gonna do one like with like my parents, it would be like, Mom, this is like the arrow that sits in me when X happened, or how like your treatment of me when Y happened. And then I would have to break it over my knee, and she would have to acknowledge that she was never going to do that to me again. And like that was their way of like mending and healing, and that like you have to like remember that and like have that be like a symbolic representation of like, we're not going to hurt each other like this anymore. We're not going to harm each other. We're going to take each other's like emotions seriously and thoughtfully, blah blah blah.
That's very profound shit.
Yeah, right.
So, and what's really happening there is communication. It's externalized.
Yeah.
It's symbolized, but when you are completely validated by someone who has hurt you and you express that to them, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, I really did do that.
Yeah.
And they're not playing this game of, oh, wait a minute, what about you? Here's what you did.
Yeah. Oh my God. I have a family member who that's what it is. It's like, if you try to talk, it's like, but you do this. And it's like, you're not taking ownership. Like, look, like you're right. Like I do things that are wrong, and I need to take ownership of them. And we need to have a conversation like that, not a, you do this, you do this, you do this. Well, you do this, you do this, you do this, like that kind of shit. I think what you're right, it is communication. And like another thing that I've learned through like my teaching is to use I statements. And it's like, when X happens, I feel Y. So like, Dad, when you do X, I feel Y. Or like you can make it broad, like when someone and it's to be broad, it's not to be passive aggressive. Like when someone doesn't put the dishes away, I feel like you don't love me. Like not like that, but like you can do something broad, like when someone is doing other things when I'm on the phone with them and I know they're doing other things, like looking at something online or texting somebody else, or I can hear them disconnect out of the conversation. And then when I call them on it and they tell me they're listening to me, I'm sorry, that's violent. I shouldn't do that. That makes me feel like I don't matter to you and I'm wasting my time.
One of the big things family, at least the family unit, is supposed to do is like to support you when you are at your absolute weakest and most vulnerable.
Yeah. And
even when you're trying to like that's another part of arguing is you're trying to make stuff work out. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I think that my family does support me and care for me. But yeah, and that's again where the guilt comes in, is like, well, your family didn't fucking beat you up and leave you for dead. Like, so why, and they support you. So like, why are you fucking upset, bro? Why are you fucking sad? Like, that's like the internal bro. That's the bro that I've internalized who tells me I'm wrong. It's the internal mansplainer.
The internal mansplainer.
I kid.
But at the end of the day, this is my famous quote. Why do you have to have the absolute worst story?
That's true.
That's
true.
Why do you but why? So no matter who has the absolute worst story, like there's only one person in the world who has the absolute worst, and everyone's fighting up in between. All the shit in between is like my mom and dad did this, and your mom and dad did that. Well, I knew a guy whose parents did this. Like it's always this, like why is it a rap battle?
Yeah, why is it a one-upmanship?
Yeah, like all the shit. I think all the stuff that you are trying to communicate with your family is just a way of you of your soul really trying to come out and be like the best that it can be. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. And I feel like I do agree with that. Like, why does it have to be the worst story? And I saw a really cool, I forget what the speaker's name is, but there's this really cool video on the internet that talks about like the difference between empathy and sympathy. And it's this video of like this like, it's a cartoon, it's a little fox, and she has like a rain cloud over her head, and she's like crying. And there's this bear standing next to her. And she like climbs into like a dark hole because she's like to represent her sadness. And he climbs down with her. And like, they say that the difference between like empathy and sympathy is that with sympathy, it's, sympathy is this idea of like, I won't go to or acknowledge your feeling. I'm just going to tell you that like, it's always going to be better. Or like, for example, if the person says like, Johnny is failing school. Well, at least Susie's a good student. Or I'm getting divorced. Well, at least you've been married. Like that type of thing versus like, and the way they represent it is like a deer pops down and like has this exchange with the fox, and the deer goes away, and then the sympathy deer, and then the empathy bear like takes off his hat and he has a rain cloud, and because he like brings himself down to be with that person and just like be with them and support them in their like feelings. And I think that I have internalized a sympathizer to say like, but it could always be better. Like, don't worry about it. Like, blah, blah, blah. And instead I need to internalize an empathizer and be like, yes, that is valid.
That is very true. Well, it's pretty cool that a bear is able to have empathy and not gnaw your face off until death.
It was a cartoon.
Okay. That's good because, bears are, maybe they just have a bad rap.
Maybe they just come from a really bad family. I'm glad that we brought up bears because really bears are what I wanted to talk about today. And, bears are a big problem. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Do you mean the animal or like big fat hairy like
no
gay men?
No. Oh, speaking of not the gay bear, have you ever been to the Lincoln Park Zoo and seen their black bear?
No.
Okay. Have you been to the Lincoln Park Zoo and gone to the part of the zoo that's like North American animals, and they've got like wolves and beavers and ducks?
I haven't been to the Lincoln Park Zoo since I was a little kid.
We should go to Lincoln Park Zoo.
Let's fucking do it.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, actually, I said that. I think the last time I went to the zoo, I cried. Maybe that's a bad idea. Like, I get kind of sad when I see animals in cages. But anyway, they have a black bear, and they have a little like fake tree stump log thing that like backs up to glass. So like if he's in the little hole, the little fake log, you can still see him. And or her, I don't know what sex the bear is, but let's call it just bear. So every time I've gone to the zoo and gone to the bear exhibit, like, and seen the bear is always in the stump. And now I'm wondering if the bear is fake or the bear is dead.
It's probably a combination of both.
It's a fake bear, like it's a dead bear, like a stuffed bear that they put there.
Like they've made it with the intention of it looking like it was dead, like as a prop, and then they just, yeah. It's kind of like
The bear is dead.
It's like it's like a zombie, and like like in The Walking Dead, like the zombie on the ground it's not like it was a real decaying person. They made it
really, yeah.
They made it like, okay, let's make this look as dead as possible, and it's fake, but it's convincing enough. At least with bears, they have the reputation of being friendly.
What?
Friendly bear? Am I making that up?
Like in our, like you think that, like we think of like Pooh Bear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And dude,
yeah, I don't, or like Baloo, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I'll go there with you.
Yeah. Reminds me of Grizzly Man. You ever see the documentary?
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah, this guy like thought his family was like amongst the bears, and then the bear ate him, and that's kind of a metaphor.
Oh God.
Like for like how it is here, like amongst humans. Timothy Treadwell walked amongst the land of the bears, and his girlfriend Amy Huguenard was eaten by the bears.
Is that the same guy?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
seriously,
the deranged penguin guy and
the deranged penguin guy is the same Grizzly Man guy. Oh my God, my mind has been blown.
Werner Herzog, it's him.
My mind is blown. But I'm just gonna I just want to talk about your metaphor here. So you're saying that we are the innocent, vulnerable human that just wants to fit in, and then our family destroys us.
No, I would say our family is the innocent one that's trying to fit in, and life just destroys us. Oh. So the bear is like a force of nature.
I thought you meant that our family is the bear destroying us, and I was like,
no,
wow.
No, not at all. I mean, so I'll give you, here's a story. So my journey in life, as I said earlier, is trying to find a way for me to let go of like the misery and the bad stuff that has been passed on from generation to generation amongst my family. Mm-hmm. So I grew up, in a suburban household, just my immediate family, my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. As a kid, I had a lot of very happy memories. I was a very happy kid. So if you saw like videos of me, I was I was just always running around and like playing in the sprinkler and shit. And my parents were very, very good parents because my mom grew up in a household where she was the oldest of 7. Mm-hmm. And both her mom and dad worked, and her dad died young. So my grandfather, when she was, I think, still a teenager. So my mom raised pretty much all of her brothers and sisters because my grandma was out of the house. My dad, on the other hand, my grandma, Oma, who I will talk about, was never really like a solid part of his life. There would just be like a rotating door of men, who would just kind of come and go, and never really paid attention, to my dad. My dad had a brother. His name was Lothar, and my mom was the oldest of 7. And when I was a kid, I really liked being around like my family, because I had like aunts, uncles, and cousins and stuff. But there's some things that kind of happened, like amongst the family, not like traumatizing stuff, but just stuff to where my dad was never able to kind of forget about certain things that my mom's family did. Mainly, honestly, it has to deal with money. So it has nothing to do with like, fucked up trauma or anything like that. So as a kid, I did see a few relatives. I saw, my Uncle Roger, who I really liked. He would come over and like we would go fishing in the summer, and I remember he kind of taught me like the rules about plumbing. When I was like a teenager, because he was a plumber, so we would go to his little shop, and he taught me like underground rough and trim and all this stuff with pipes. So I kind of have this weird half-assed knowledge with pipes. It's not really practical, nor can I really solve many problems, but the fact that like he was there and he really like took me out and just showed me the ropes and all that stuff, and he was very present in my life. I did have an Aunt Kim. She was like my mom's sister as well. Mm-hmm. I never really got to know my dad's brother, but I can get back to that in a second. So my mom came from this very Polish, I know that sounds bad, Polish family where okay, you can't leave the house unless you're fed. And there was a very strong sense of family. So, like, okay, like every Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter, like the family's supposed to get together. My family, my immediate family, is the black sheep of that family because my dad never really wanted to do anything with those people. My mom, despite all that stuff happening and going on, she still wanted to have like relationships with her family. So my dad was the patriarch of the family. So he was the guy that he had the traditional 9-to-5 job. He would work. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So because my mom had 7 children, she wanted to make sure that like I was taken care of. So for instance, if I was feeling sick at school, I would go to the office, I would call home, and she would be there in like 5 minutes.
Wow.
Run over there. My parents instilled this into me and to this day, it's probably like the number one quality I'm proud to say that I have is they instilled punctuality because whenever they say, okay, we're going to leave at 10, we are gone at 10. I will be there at 10. They are there at 10, if not earlier. Like I love going to things early. I hate being late to anything. You know, whenever I say, like, I'm on my way hanging out, like, I just have this programmed ability in my head to predict time. And, of course, some things happen. But, like, if I say, yeah, Gabby, we're going to hang out at 10 o'clock, I'm never here at, like, 10:45.
No.
Just, like, taking my sweet-ass time to get here.
No, you always leave 20 minutes before. You text me when you're on your way, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and they were always there for me, you know, and, like, they always, like, made sure that, like, I was provided for. So, kind of the trade-off with that was I never really... like my brother had a closer relationship with my dad. I had a much closer relationship with my mom. Even to this day, like I'm still trying to figure out who like my dad really is. So I know like a lot about him, like, you know, like there's like trivia and like, you know, he's where I get my sense of humor from. We have a very similar sense of humor. My mom's has more of a wackier sense of humor. So I'm kind of like a perfect marriage of both of them. I do have a brother. He's 7 years older than me. And, I mean, if I'm being honest, it's kind of been a very difficult relationship throughout time with me and him. And, you know, we're still trying to work stuff out. So there was a period of time where I didn't even speak to him for years. And then recently started talking to him again and he's back in my life now. So, there's always the good to look back on. And the bad that was there was the bad that always kind of had to be kept a secret.
Same.
So not only that, but if anybody knew about this stuff, then that reflected on me as kind of like not a great person. Whereas, you know, all that other stuff that was instilled, you know, was pretty much just there for the taking.
Yeah.
So the thing is in my house was Monday through Friday was great. And then once the weekends hit, that's when the house completely turned upside down. I grew up in a household where my parents drank on the weekends. And my dad was a very responsible guy. Like, he always paid the bills. Like, there was always food on the table. He was a great provider. And my mom was a great mother. So I'm always supposed to remember those good times. But the bad times helped influence me as well. A lot of, like, all the stuff that they pretty much tried to work out came out on the weekends. So, and I knew, like, because when I was a kid, it was Friday, and, like, even more in the winter time, like, it was already dark outside. So it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun is gone, and, you know, the air is crisp, and then I would just be waiting for my dad to come home. And then he would put his briefcase down on the table, and, you know, he came home with, like, the smell of, you know, that, like, working all day musk on him, and he wore that like a cologne. And then he and my mom just started to drink. And then that's when their personalities completely changed.
Yeah.
So I was witness to that most of my life. And I never told anybody about it. I never, like, it was kind of like the big family secret. It still is to this day. And I feel really bad right now for talking about it. But there have been times where I remembered, like, I would have friends spend the night at my house, and they would, you know, be upstairs drinking, and I would have to turn, like, the video game volume up really loud, like, to kind of, like, drown out the sound, like, because we would be downstairs, and they would be upstairs, and all that stuff, and I could just tell. And to this day, I have this irrational kind of fear of ice cubes being dropped into a glass.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Like whenever you hear the noise, you bristle.
yes. And
I have that with the pouring of alcohol.
Right.
On over ice. Yeah.
it's a wreck.
Whenever it cracks.
Yeah, it's not even like the fucking like the clink clink of a gun or anything like that. But once I heard that sound, I knew what to expect, and I knew that's like how I had to transform myself. So
I have the same. I have with the opening and the pouring noises. I have that too.
So I became very sensitive to my environment at a very young age. And I had to use humor as a way to kind of help me cope with it all and to kind of help escape. So that's like when I really delved into stand-up comedy. And that's like, just watching it on Friday and especially Saturday nights. Saturday nights, HBO would have a new stand-up special at 9 o'clock after the Saturday night, 7 o'clock movie. So I would always watch all the newest stand-up. And my brother inherited that too. Like, he's a very funny guy. I think pound for pound, like, he's fun. Like, he's like the type of funny like I want to be in terms of his timing and like the way he like escalates his like anger within jokes. Like, I can't like just him describing like dogs. Like, I'm fucking dying like every time like he talks about it. Like, that's how funny this fucking guy is.
Yeah.
But that's something that we had to kind of learn and adapt. So it's hard to talk about the bad stuff because the good stuff is obviously like the good stuff. And, that's when you're saying like, well, yeah, my parents never beat me up. I was never molested and all that stuff. However, I inherited some of this misery that was passed down on me from the environment that I saw when I grew up in. Yeah. So the stuff that I don't want to do is I never, like, to this day, I am 16 years, going on 16 years of being sober and not touching drugs or alcohol or cigarette, like nothing. I live a completely clean lifestyle.
Yeah.
I wish I could say the same with the path that my brother took, but he did not. So that's probably a main reason why, like, my relationship with him has been so rocky. We have talked about it since, and we're just still trying to like mend that relationship. And I have talked to my mom mainly about how I felt growing up. And then I've never really talked to my dad because he genuinely cares for me and he's a great provider and makes sure that like I have like gas money or like food and stuff. But when it comes to just like, like talking, like like we rarely just kind of just have those conversations. Yeah. So my parents were trying to work out the shit that they had to deal with growing up. And then vice versa. It was just this kind of never ending cycle. And I have all of these tools instilled in me. Like, I have the makings of being an alcoholic. That's just how my mind works. I have a very extremely addictive personality.
Same.
And I have feelings to where I can let resentment build up a very long time, to where it takes on an identity of its own. And I've really improved with that over the years. However, my dad has not. So I never really had like that aunt, uncle, cousin like relationship with my family growing up because, of like my dad's resentment towards them. I could change that now because I'm an adult, but it's so weird because I just don't feel the drive to, because it's as if like I have to get to know strangers. Like, my father's mother, Oma, I've never had a relationship with that woman. She had a really close relationship with my brother. And I remember when we, like Oma would still send me like birthday cards with money and stuff. And then I'd call her up. I'm like, hey, Oma, I just want to say thank you for the birthday money. That's good, Brent. Where's your brother? And then I would give the phone to my brother and, they would talk and, my grandma's still alive to this day. She's in her 90s, and she's in a home now, and I haven't seen her or spoken to her in 4 years. But I don't feel this sort of distance that's caused by, like, hate or resentment. It's because, like, this is a fucking stranger.
Yeah, I feel the same way with family members because you've never really had a relationship with them. So you don't really feel bad because you don't know, like, what you're missing.
Yeah, and from just hearing amongst my peers, they say, like they're tight with their family, and like that is great. But in my experience, it's been very much just my nuclear family. And
Same.
You know, I've learned a lot. I mean, there's so many stories that I can go into that I've already said too much as it is now. I'm trying to look into what I can do to make sure that I break this cycle of the fear that I have inherited growing up. So I think a lot of my anxiety came from just kind of growing up in like a state that had fear like on a weekly basis. And, you know, same thing, like just my mom probably like with like the amount of responsibility she had as a kid and like my dad and, you know, his relationship with his, you know, family. And, you know, I'm not saying this in regards to being like a sappy, you know, like, oh, we feel so bad for Brent's story. Like that's not the case at all. Yeah. But I understand where the guilt comes from because that's also part of the family too, the good and the bad. So for, you know, I have more stories about my parents taking care of me than when they weren't there for me. Both completely shaped my personality though. So that's the thing I have to reconcile with that. So what do? Try to talk to them? I've tried. And there's still to this day parts of like there's things that I have left unsaid because I just know I'm at the point where it's not going to reach that level.
Yeah.
So here's what I have to do to make it sure that I never end up like that. One, I have to make sure that I communicate myself honestly and not hold in such resentment towards other people. Two, I have to check in with myself and like really have that self-awareness, which really sucks at the end of the day because you're thinking, so that's where the anxiety comes from. But when you look at anxiety, like anxiety in its truest form is actually really helpful because it makes you self-aware.
Yeah.
But when anxiety kind of takes a, you know, turn is where you're ruminating on shit that hasn't even happened. Mm-hmm. But that's the conversation I'm trying to have with myself is because like throughout my whole life, I have wanted like to have that very strong family unit. And I understand that we do argue and there's things that just can't be, I don't know, like the arguments that I have with my family are never, I can't remember the last time I ever had an argument with my family about the issue at hand. There's always a much deeper situation at hand, like, you know, like words that have been left unsaid. So I just know how I can easily push people away. And I could see how that works. And I'm like, oh shit, am I really pushing this person away right now? You know, instead of not working shit out. And it's just like, yeah, I feel guilty about that because it's like, okay, that's what I, you know, don't want to fucking do. And then I have to come to the point where it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, what am I getting at the end of the day? You know, and I'm not like preventing anybody else from having a relationship with who they want to have relationships with. And that's kind of how it was with my mom, my dad and my mom's family. So I also don't want to end up like my grandma. She's in a home and 90 years old and complains about everything. So for instance, like, and it's all hammed up as well. So for instance, she's trying to like walk and she's like, oh my God, I can't even walk. Oh God. But like only when people are around.
Yeah. And
like when nobody's around, she's totally fine. But then like, she's like, oh God, I can't sit. I can't walk. I can't see. And then like, she's like trying to like make people feel so bad for her. And it's always been like that my whole life. Like even as a kid, I think I mentioned on an earlier podcast where I would call my grandma like, hi grandma, I want to thank you for the $50 birthday card. Thank you, Brent. I'm not doing so good. I can't walk. I have cancer. And then I'm crying. I'm like, Mom, Dad, Mama has cancer. They're like, nah, she doesn't have fucking cancer. So, but that's how I feel when I talk about this shit.
Yeah.
So like when I'm talking about this, I feel like I'm going, my family, I can't talk. I can't even see dinner with them. I can't. I'm gonna die. I have cancer. It's like, no, like family is so fucking complicated and there's no, and it really is, it factors down to like a very individual basis.
Yes.
But I've come to the decision in my life to where, what do? Do I accept the fact that, you know, my family is the way it is and either just completely be resentful the rest of my life for the shit that I've experienced, or do I take ownership of my own path and try to deviate away from it, which I'm really trying to do, even though I catch myself every once in a while and be like, okay, that's not what I want to do. And then I'm able to fix it. And, this has been a very interesting year for me because I say like, I still want to be involved with like, pretty much everyone's life that I'm like close to, but there's been some people in my life I just had to completely cut out recently because that level of betrayal that I felt, and not only that, but some of those feelings that I felt as a kid were all too familiar. And it's like, well, if I have to experience this with my family, why the fuck do I have to experience this with you as a friend?
Yeah, totally.
So, that's the thing, is that every single family is at the mercy of the bear. And it really depends on what you're doing kind of in that forest. So it's inevitable that families are going to fight. Families are going to argue. Families are never going to be perfect, and nor should they be, because let's just say that you had a perfect family for 24 years of your life. And then that 1 year where you guys just had one disagreement, that's the worst thing ever, is this one little disagreement. And it's so far away from reality because it's still a negative feeling. So the most real thing is that, the part of me that I really want to share, I guess, with this world and other people is to like have that family. And, I'm trying to like do more family things like with my other friends. Like for Christmas this year, my friend has a 2-year-old and I'm going to dress up as Santa Claus for that 2-year-old. And I can't fucking wait to do that because, my dad was Santa. And he had like this beautiful velvet, like genuine Santa suit with the beard and spirit gum and all that stuff. And like he would actually like those were a lot of happy times at Christmas. Yeah. When he would like, just like bring smiles to people's face. And, that humor that he brought to the table was like a really big part of my life too. And it's also all the other stuff that is not so happy and good times. So
it was really profound when you said the thing about we're just trying to break the cycle of other people's misery in our families, because like their behavior is all based off the misery they experienced, and then the way they act then affects us. And like there's something really profound in stopping the cycle of misery.
There is, because I don't want to. It's bad enough me dealing with my misery. Why would I want to put that on anybody else?
I agree. And that's just an argument for why people need to deal with their shit. Like, and I never really considered that, like, when you argue with your family, you're never arguing about the matter at hand. I've never considered that before.
Because, like, I'll give you an example. The other day, when it snowed, there was a blizzard outside, and like Sunday night into Monday. Yeah. And that's when, like, the world was shut down. Yeah.
Everything in our area stopped moving. I got a snow day. School shut down. Everything.
So, like, in my house, my mom asks me to do a lot of little things around the house because she's unable to with her condition. So, some of the times I have to just say no. So, I was looking out the back door and just looking. And then as I was there, she wanted me to dust and, like, get some cobwebs away from like the heating vent that was hanging over my head. And she's like, oh, while you're there, can you do this? Like, and I just woke up and I said, no, Mom, I'm not going to do this. And then she's like, come on. And I said, no, I just wanted to look outside. I'm going to go make my breakfast. And then she said, don't be a cocksucker. and then I flipped out. And then I said, why you're fucking calling me names. And she said, I said, don't be. and then she said, I didn't call you a cocksucker. I just said, don't be a cocksucker. And then like I, at that point in time, just wanted to kill her. And, so I went and I made my eggs and had my breakfast and I collected my thoughts.
Does your mom, I don't think I've ever heard my mom ever say cocksucker.
Oh, that's, every family's different. She mainly says this to my dad, but as like I don't know, like for the longest time, like when I was growing up, like I thought my mom's name was bitch and my dad's name was asshole, like they're legal first names. So that's just their like their relationship. How they show each other love is just through constant bickering. So
I don't think that's love, but I don't put it this way. That's not my love language. Yeah. So bickering is not my love language.
So then I like calmed down. didn't kill my mom. And I came to her after I said, look, like, I don't like when you call me names. And I said, like, here, let's play the logic back. I said, like, I said, Mom, do you want pizza for dinner? And you said no. And then I said, come on. And you said no. And I said, well, don't be a bitch.
Yeah.
I said, how would you take it? Would you take it as if I called you a bitch? Like, you know, or if I just said, hey, how about maybe go fuck yourself? You know, and I just told him, like, I'm not doing the passive aggressive stuff. And I said, if you're going to keep calling me names, I'm not going to help you out with anything ever. And I said, to keep my own sanity, I have to say no to some of the things that you ask me because I just sometimes want to do my own thing.
Yeah, for sure. And
she didn't get it. Like they just completely don't understand. So, like, those are really hard. But I mean, shit's cool now. But I'm at the point to where I feel. And this kind of like, I think this feeling kind of comes out like amongst like my friends and like every other interaction I have with my coworkers and like, you know, especially with women and stuff where I need like some sort of little extra validation because I think everything I'm doing is wrong all the fucking time.
Really?
Yet I'm self-sabotaging myself in most situations.
You feel like you feel that way?
Yes.
Aww.
And I think it kind of comes from that dynamic. So another thing I'm trying to improve is just how the fuck do you get over that? How do you get past that? Because I don't want to be 40 years old taking out my problems on the world. And
I feel the same. Like, that's how I feel, where it's like, again, I'm trying to unshackle myself from this burden because I don't want to be walking around as like someone who's like Cody would always tell me like it's not cute anymore to be the emo kid who hates your parents. And I'm like, yeah, but like, this is how I feel. Like, I mean, when he wasn't using that as like a weapon against me, but like, it's real. Like, you don't want to be like a grown ass person walking around hating their parents. Like, you would hope that there was a time and place for that and it was teenagehood. It's also weird too, because like what you were saying about like, you have all these good times, like that pattern of behavior with your parents, that happened your whole life, right?
Yeah.
So my pattern started like from like middle school onward. And with my parents, and then it was like, I feel like because it started like at a different point, that's why I still feel raw about things. And I even had like a sort of friend. She thought she was my friend. I didn't really like this person, but she was like, you need to get over that. Like you need to stop doing it. And like the wounds were like 3 years old. And I was like, fuck you, I'm not getting over this because I like have a lot of pain I need to work through, blah, blah, blah. But like, you just need to unshackle yourself and stop the cycle of misery. I don't want to get married and like have a kid and then like make that like pass on the misery. Like, I don't want that. I don't want my kid to even know like what my mom and I and my dad and I's dynamic, like how it was. I want them to not know that. Because I feel like if I told them, it would be passing on the misery, right?
Here's the thing, like if let's just say like hypothetically, like they graduated high school and you guys go out to dinner and you're just like, hey,
yes,
here's my story now.
Yes,
but you're not using that like, how come I can't go to the concert? Well, it's because my fucking mom never let me go to concerts. So that's why you have to stay home. It's because I didn't.
I think it's a very, yes, because like, let's say the kid's like 18 to 20 and you, like you said, you tell them your story of like, you know, grandma and grandpa made me feel X and this is what happened. And that's why blah, blah, blah. Cause like, even like, in similar ways, like you were saying, like now you're like, you've been straight edge for 16 years. Like I didn't drink until I was, you know, I went to college, obviously, where like drinking underage is a thing, like, or in high school, even it's a thing. I didn't drink until I think it was almost through the fall semester, of my freshman year. And I never drank to excess. Like I never drank to the point that I got drunk because I was so ashamed and terrified that I was doing that I was drinking because drinking had caused so many problems in my life. And I felt so guilty about it. And I totally also have that addictive personality where like I've told you're really, really aware. And like maybe when I'm like at a place, I'll talk about it more on the podcast, but I'm going through a lot of like stuff right now and like doing a lot of mental emotional work to heal from something and to recover. And I realized, and like I would have moments where I was in the middle of this experience. And I would be like, God, I wish I was an alcoholic. That would be much easier to deal with. But then I stop myself and I'm like, that's stupid thinking. Like, you don't want to replace this with that or whatever. But like, I know that's within me. And like, I know that like when you did drink, you drank when you were like, I know you've been sober for 16 years. Take me back 17 years ago. Were you drinking at that time?
Yeah. Let me clarify. It wasn't a...
It wasn't like an addiction.
No, but I knew I was on the path, and like what really kind of changed my mind, like in the moment, I remember the last time I drank was May 19th, 2003.
Wow. Day after my birthday.
Yep. So I remember, I was at my cousin's graduation party. He was a few years older than me, and I was there with my brother and his girlfriend. And my parents were like, okay, like, Brent, you never drink. And then I remember I was there at the party. I'm like, can I just do some Jack Daniels? And my aunts and cousin were like, yeah, just don't tell your parents, obviously. So I was drinking shots of Jack, drinking beer, and then I got high that night. And the next morning I woke up and, I sweat a lot when I sleep, especially like when I have heavy blankets on. And this was like the summertime. So this is May. And I woke up in my bed and then I just kind of smelled the waft of that liquor cologne, like on my chest. And then I had a very similar feeling to like, how like my family would smell like when they woke up. So like, I was just like, oh my God, I fucking smell like this.
Yeah.
Like I just said right then and there, I said, I don't know how I'm going to make this happen, but I can't ever let myself go down this path, because if I did, I would probably be the worst part of my family. So like, I would have taken all of the misery that's been passed, like all the stuff that they never really got to work out, and I would have completely amplified it and took it out on even more people. And, granted, I missed out on some TV. So I probably could have been on intervention. I could have at least had like a nice hotel gathering of friends and family saying, Brent, we love you. We want our Brent back. God damn it. But,
Brent, I'm going to read this to you.
Brent, you being a fucking drunk has affected my life in the following ways. And I'm just sitting there like blubber. Like, I don't want to be here, man. No, I'm not trying to make fun of the people on that show, because that's some really serious shit. But
dude, yeah, it's horrible.
But I know I can fucking definitely. I know had I been on that path, I would have led absolutely nowhere good, and the cycle would have continued anew.
Same. Yeah, no, I feel the same way, and like I feel like when I am drinking, like I've set a boundary for myself after like years of like knowing what my limit is, and I've set kind of a boundary of like before I hit my limit, because at a certain point when I'm drinking, after a certain number of drinks, like I don't fucking care, and I will keep drinking. Like it doesn't matter. But then I always have like these like feelings of guilt, like while I'm drinking, like even if it's like 2 drinks at a friend's house or 2 drinks like out with friends, like for a meal, that's one thing. But like, I don't buy alcohol. Like I don't have it in the house. I do. Okay. That's a lie. I have a bottle of vodka that somebody gave me, but I don't drink vodka. And I have a little bit of like Woodford Reserve that my dad left me. Like I don't have alcohol in the house ever. And because my fear is if I buy a bottle of wine that like I will just down it. Or if I buy some Jim Beam, I will down it. And yeah, but even like I've had like every time I've ever gotten like drunk or like past my point, there's always inevitably a point when you have to break the seal and you go to the bathroom, and there's this moment when I just look at myself in the mirror and I'm like so ashamed of myself, because I also smell the liquor breath, or like I've vomited I think only once from drinking, or twice from drinking too much. And in that moment of like hunched over the toilet, like having vomited, I just sit there and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I am just like so-and-so. And like, even though so-and-so didn't even let it get to that point, like, so much guilt, so much shame.
Yeah. So it's we can't view family with the same proclivity and the same criteria as we judge celebrities. So,
or any family we see on TV.
no. So, like right now, if a celebrity does a bad thing, we're all supposed to hop on the bandwagon and say, this person is bad. I am right. I know better because I would never do such a thing. Therefore, we should not involve this person in our lives anymore. And it's really easy to come to that conclusion when other people are talking about the challenges in their family life because we don't have any emotions attached. And when you don't have emotions attached, yeah, of course, say, hey, Brent, do you want cheese pizza from this place or that place? I'm like, doesn't fucking matter to me. I don't give a shit. But, hey, Brent, here's some shit about your family. Let's talk about it. Or here's what my family did. There's a part of me that's just like, oh my God, that's fucked up. How dare they? And I'm just like, how am I so much of a better person? At least I'm not. I'm on the path to being better.
Yeah.
Or at least the best I can be.
Yeah.
And I think with family, it comes to the point where I have to, I have this fear of the ice cubes, being dropped in the glass because I grew up in an environment where I was always walking on thin ice. And, shit that has weight sinks.
Yeah.
So that's why when that fucking ice breaks, you go all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I'm teetering on that. And I'm not, I do have some solid ground to stand on because no matter how dark and no matter how suicidal and depressed I have ever been, the last thing on my mind was drinking. Like I would have accepted death more than just a beer.
Yeah.
So and that was another thing that kind of helped me get through my dark times because I was like, well, wait a minute, what am I preserving? So I want to kill this guy, which is me. What's preserving me from drinking? Like, what's preserving me from just like running over everybody on the sidewalk, like GTA style? What's preventing me from killing other people? What's preventing me from drinking? And like, not even on a law, like, okay, like the killing stuff, yeah, that's excessive, but like, what's preventing me from smoking and drinking and doing drugs, right? Like, what really is? What the fuck am I preserving?
Yeah.
And we all do have that thing in us that we do want to preserve at the end of the day. And when it comes to family, it would be nice to where I'm going through those times. And that's not to say like, hey, when I'm walking down this path in life, I just want to know that if I do look back, you're there. And in case I do want to come back, you will welcome me in case the shit goes wrong. Not, I want to go back to you. I'm not leaving this because I want to run as far away as I can from the family, because that's not a good place to be. Family's supposed to be this like safe anchor point, to where you feel you can really flourish as a human being.
Yeah.
And I do know my family loves me. They are very loyal to me and they do love me. And we do have a lot of conversations that we need to have. It's not easy. And what's a lot harder is just trying to make sure that, I just say enough is enough. Yeah. And then just fucking love myself and other people and, never show them the things that I have seen.
I totally agree. And I think that I used to think when I was a teenager, like how like I would make a list of the things I would never do as a parent kind of in my brain. And recently I was talking to a coworker, was venting to her about some stuff regarding my family. And she just looked at me and she's got 2 kids. One's 7, one's 4. And she goes, Gabi, how do I not be that? How do I make sure that I never do that to my kid? And I looked at her and I was like, well, that's easy. You just don't do blank, blank, blank. And like, I remember being a teenager and thinking about like, there's no perfect parent, but like with every trauma and bad thing, that person learns to not be that parent. So eventually, will we have a perfect parent? Will we have somebody who gets it right? And I don't really think that there is a perfect parent, like now that I'm older, but like I remember thinking about that and like how I would not, like because of my trauma, I would not do XYZ, PDQ, sometimes Y. So yeah, family is something that we long for and we want to have. But I think it really is like what it comes down to is you have this is a bundle of relationships that we're told to value and to care for. And because it's a relationship and we're not perfect, we will hurt each other. But what matters more in the end is that you're willing to forgive and and work through and communicate, but also value yourself enough to not tether yourself to the things that didn't work and to find a way to rise above the misery.
Fucks yeah.
Fucks yeah. Okay. Are we done?
Do you have any more? Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Because I totally hijacked the last half.
No. But I talked a lot in the beginning, so I really don't have anything else to say. I just, this is just a really heavy topic. That's all. Yeah.
So, but if you guys have a great family, that's great. If you don't, only look at the good things. At least they didn't kill Jews, buy slaves.
Wait, they could have.
They might. Maybe maybe one day.
You know what? At least they gave you life.
I didn't consent for it, though.
That's so true. I always come back to that. No one can ever give consent to be born.
No.
Fuck that shit. Okay. But if you liked what you hear and you'd like to hear more of us, you can always follow us on Facebook at Coffee and Catastrophe. You can like us on Twitter at Oh my God, I haven't done the outro in so long, I forgot what it is.
CCWBG.
At CCWBG. Our website is coffeeandcatastrophe.com. You can also like us on iTunes. Please leave us a review, by the way. We don't have any reviews. And while you're at it, also follow us on Stitcher and CastBox and leave us some reviews. We need some lovin' for this podcast. We now have 2 seasons done. We've got one more episode coming for you to finish off the year of 2018. Can we tell them what it is?
Yes.
It's going to be a retrospective on 2018. So if you want to hear the down and dirty about what went well, what we're improving on, what our goals are for next year, and I might even bring a little mini bottle of champagne for myself and a mini sparkling champagne cider for you, non-alcoholic, of course, to kind of like recap this year. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Just not looking forward to seeing you get drunk.
I'm just gonna have like a little, like, it's like, have you seen the mini bottles? It's like 1 glass and it's champagne.
The only thing I ask is if you just drop your ice cubes when I'm not in the room.
I'm not gonna. No, you don't put ice in champagne.
Really?
No, you chill the bottle beforehand.
No, that's what my mom does. It puts the ice.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you can. This is not usually what you do.
I think that's the worst thing I've said about my family. Is the ice in the champagne. I'm a bad son. So.
What? Well.
Yeah, but.
Anyway. Well, this was a very bad outro. Next one would be much better when we round out our season and 2018 is a year. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and be good to each other.
See you now.